Many homeowners are dancing the night away as their homes continue to appreciate in value. This has allowed them to use their home as a bank account and pull money out when needed. The equity portion of their homes hasn't grown, and instead people are left holding on to more liabilities, applying dangerous levels of pressure onto their backs. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. I am your host, Warren Buffett, and today we are going to talk about housing prices, and I want to get into so many other issues that I'll just go through very quickly. Let's begin with this. 4 major U.S. cities ring the housing bubble alarm. Now remember, this isn't me saying this, although when you read this, it sounds a lot like the Money GPS. Home prices in Denver, Houston, Miami, and Washington, D.C. metro area are now considered overvalued. So I'll talk about that more in a moment, why they say this. Some previously hot markets such as San Fran and New York City metropolitan area are cooling down. Now, when you talk about cooling down, you're coming off of a level that's so extremely high that cooling down is still overvalued. So I want to mention that. Low mortgage rates are keeping the market affordable from a monthly perspective, but affordability will likely become a much bigger challenge in the coming years. And what they're saying is, look, yes, you're paying a low monthly fee because of interest rates being so low, historically low, but as they are increased, you are going to have very big problems. And that is the truth. So further along in this article, it talks about how they value this, and it is to determine if a market is overvalued. CoreLogic compares current prices to their long-run sustainable levels, which are supported by local economic fundamentals like disposable income. Okay, disposable income versus the price of that particular home. I think that is the best indicator for any housing market. If you want to know the number one indicator, that's it. How much people earn, how much their house costs. It's a very simple fact. If people take 40 years to pay it off and they don't have any other disposable income because that's taking away from everything they have, that's not affordable. It's barely affordable, but people go underwater as a result. And ultimately, the banks will keep lending. There will always be alternative mortgage lenders. And everyone in Canada believes that the housing prices will continue to escalate. It is a fact. Talk about the people in New York City, for example, how they will strongly disagree with you if you believe otherwise. Now, does that mean that housing prices can't continue to rise? Absolutely not. They can continue forever. But that key is interest rates. I've gotten to this many times. I'll just move on. All right, an overvalued market is one in which home prices are at least 10% higher than that level. The rest of the top 10 markets are considered at value, but none are undervalued. Prices are higher in all of them compared with a year ago. There's no end in sight to the escalation here. Now, they make the claim that housing is too expensive for most people, yet we have seen that continue to expand. So what's happening? Well, a lot of foreign money is coming in. That's a fact. But I do believe that many people have stretched themselves to the maximum. And I think that this could present itself to be a problem in the near future, regardless of what happens with interest rates, because you can only expand the bubble so far. It has to pop eventually. If you increase interest rates, then of course that would be all it needs. That is the linchpin. So while low mortgage rates are keeping the market affordable from a monthly perspective, and it gets into what I was talking about earlier in there, let me show you Canadian real estate. Okay, this is right now. While the sales have declined because of this minuscule increase in interest rates, the public feels that let's just hold off for now. Let's just wait. And let's see what's going to happen. But previous to that, it was rising and rising and rising consistently. And you can see that with this chart right here. Let's look at this. I mean, we're talking about June 2016 up in the present, and month after month after month, the prices were increasing. Many people have earned a lot because of this, and the aggregate composite MLS HPI rose by 15% year over year through June 2017. But most recently, what we have seen is that the sales are down. And I believe the only reason the sales are down right now is not because that little bit of interest rates made all that difference. It's just that people are finally stopping and saying, whoa, let's just relax for a moment here. Let's just see what happens. And finally, that's some sense of reality coming to the market. I hope it continues. I in fact hope the housing prices drop by at least 50%. I don't think that's going to happen, but we can definitely see that would bring it down to a more fair value. I think it's still not accurate in terms of the housing prices to your income ratios, but it would certainly help a lot of people to make their homes more affordable. And they don't have to live in condos when they could really live in larger places, and they'd be able to afford a lot more. They would be able to spend a lot more money elsewhere. They wouldn't have to put all of their money into their home. You would see more people doing renovations on their home. You would see less people taking the equity out of their home because they needed to buy other things. That's what's happening here. Okay, now I have a very short period of time to cover a lot of articles, so let me get into this right here as we look at this. The Fed's about to try something that has almost always ended in recession. The Fed tried to reduce its balance sheet 6 times in the past. 5 times it ended in a recession. Currently, we're at $4.5 trillion on the Fed balance sheet. They say they want to wind it back. They can't successfully do that without causing a recession, but that's what they claim they want to do. I don't know what's going to happen. All I can tell you is that if they do, in fact, pull back on this balance sheet, they're going to cause turmoil. They can do it. They absolutely can, but not without some pain. And I do believe that there will be a major deflation that does occur. That deflation will eventually start to snowball. It will get worse and worse, and then the central banks will come out and they will have to print. So that balance sheet could easily reverse, but you may not have the Federal Reserve doing the printing at first. Maybe the Bank of Japan starts to ramp up the printing presses to an incredible level. That money finds its way back around to the United States, buying up all the debt. Maybe that buys them some time. I don't know what's going to happen, like I said, but this is definitely coming to at least the public's eyes. So we'll see. You probably have seen this, but former Sheriff Joe Arpaio has been indicted here. And unfortunately, what has happened to him is that he's being put away for up to 6 months. That's a sentence, possible sentencing here. And what I had seen with him initially, and this is years ago, the investigation with the whole fake Obama certificate, birth certificate, and that really upset a lot of those who are part of the establishment. So that was a big problem. And then more recently, he was getting into a lot of the issues with immigration, not allowing people to basically stay if they were illegally entering the country. And so they were getting kicked out under his authority. There's more to the story than that, but I think that's why the establishment doesn't like him, because he was going against the grain. And anybody who does that, finds their way out the door, or even worse. Ada is the perfect employee, always courteous, always learning, and as she says, always at work 24/7, 365 days a year. We are talking about one of Sweden's biggest banks rolling out a customer service representative that uses artificial intelligence. And that's what's happening here. They're saying, no, we're not trying to get rid of people working and everything else. We just want to make the customer relations better. Yes, we've been closing a lot of branches. Yes, we're going to a cashless society, but that isn't what this is about. This is about helping the customer. And many people are unsatisfied with the customer service that they've been receiving here. That's according to the polls. And they say that this is going to improve that. Well, perhaps that is the case. I don't believe that people necessarily want to deal with some sort of artificial intelligence robot, at least at this time. We'll see how that happens as the years go on. I just see this as more and more jobs being lost in the retail industry, in the service industry. This here is the implementation of Robo Advisors. So there are no longer a need to have a financial advisor because it's all being done by robots. Automation, computer programs. They program the statistics, they program the information directly into these computer programs, websites and things. And then what really does that financial advisor do? I mean, they simply put you in based on very, very few criteria. They click a few buttons on the screen. Why can't you just do that yourself? That's basically what's happening here. And ultimately, they have some oversight by humans, but not really. That's really what the Robo Advisor is about. You can see this as a timeline as the different companies, all the big boys, are getting into this, starting from 2010 and on to present day. They're all getting into it. They're all going to be replacing jobs. As the advisors are aging, then you tend to not need those other people to replace them. That's simple matter of fact. This here is a different look at some of the same information. The Robo Scorecard, just familiar companies like Fidelity and others who have gotten into this. Many Americans are too drugged out to work. And the chart at the bottom shows didn't work in the previous year because of illness or disability. And those numbers continue to increase, both men and women. A slew of reports finds a fresh reason for the chronic inability of American companies to fill skilled jobs, not a lack of skills, and hence a training and education crisis, but a surfeit of drug abuse, per the New York Times. Now, drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, different types of drugs. We're looking at people who are depressed, they have anxiety, they have any different amount of things that are happening to them, and they are either on some sort of leave of absence, they have claiming disability, they're getting some sort of social assistance programs here, and this is a trend that has been increasing over the years. I do believe that it will persist and it will become a much bigger problem in the future as conditions get worse. Now, right now, everybody's on a high. Imagine when they're on a low. Just imagine that. Nothing in this regard, nothing got better during these years. So as it comes down, it just hits people down further to the floor and they're unable to get up. Psychologists say more and more young people are entitled. And essentially what this article gets into is that more and more people, they want more things, and particularly the younger generation, they demand more, they want more. And ultimately their entitlements are going to be a problem for them because the future doesn't hold much promise for them. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. The housing has become too expensive. They can't afford it. The jobs don't pay as well as they used to compared to the prices of everything that exists today. You have every level of this not looking good for this generation, and it is quite unfortunate. And this year, I talked about this before, I covered it, and it actually happened here. The microchipping of individual employees at a company, they said basically, look, if you want in, it's volunteer, you can get yourself chipped. And then that would be able to pay at the vending machine, and you'd be able to open up doors, log into your computer with it and this and that. And it's so wonderful. This is a concern for me because individuals are opting into a system that allows them to basically give up their freedom, their personal sovereignty. When you have a microchip inside of you, you go beyond everything. I mean, we're always having our cell phones, and we have CCTV watching us everywhere we go. The NSA is spying on us. They're listening to me talking to you right now. It goes on, but putting a chip in your body, I mean, that just goes way beyond everything. So that's happening. Good luck to those people. This right here, last but not least, billowing black sewer discharge in Niagara Falls alarms businesses and tourists. So apparently the Maid of the Mist was going through Niagara Falls. All of a sudden they see this black stuff. They don't know what it was. They're thinking maybe it was an oil leak. It just kept spreading and spreading. Turns out, can you believe this? This sewage is allowed to discharge at regular intervals. They had the proper paperwork, they do this regularly, and they discharge sewage into the environment at regular intervals. That's what our government does to protect us. Can you believe it? They did all sorts of things. Okay, look, so you have this, Niagara Falls. You had the same thing that just occurred recently in Lake Ontario. They released raw sewage into Lake Ontario. That's the drinking water for countless people. All right. They had leaks, nuclear reactors leaking into Lake Ontario. And they said, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's only a small amount. No need to even clean it up, to attempt to clean it up. That's fine. Great. This is why I always tell people that it is important to have your own supply of water, your own filtration at least. It is essential. So I'll leave off with that message. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you will find my books, The Money GPS and my new release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. In the first book, I get into real estate as a whole chapter in there, so you definitely want to check that out. In my latest release, I get into how to basically earn income. I do talk about real estate in there as well. I get into becoming self-sufficient and talk about water actually in that as well, having your own supply, filters, everything else in there. So it's familiar topics in there in these two books, but they get into different things as well. If you want to flip through them, go over to Amazon. The links are in the description below. Take care.